All right, welcome everybody. Being 9 o'clock, I'm going to call the Marathon County Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. It is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. We have a quorum present with 3 members here as well as Vice Chair Dickinson online. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, well, actually, before I do that, I just want to welcome Aaron Greiner to the committee. He is our newest member, replacing former county board member Gary Gisselman. So welcome, Aaron. Next, we have public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Seeing no public present in the room, no public present on WebEx, I'm going to close public comment and move to item 4, approval of September 4th and 18th, 2025 Infrastructure Committee meeting minutes. What is your pleasure? We have a motion by Hardinger, second by Greiner. Any questions, comments on those 2 meeting minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the September 4th and 18th infrastructure minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have unanimous approval of item 4, our minutes. We're going to move on to item 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. A, discussion and possible action by infrastructure. Number 1, overview of the highlights of the 2026 annual budget with respect to the departments and organizations over which the committee has jurisdiction. I'm going to hand this over to Administrator Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't go through the presentation, the full presentation that was provided as the budget was presented and accepted by the HR Finance and Property Committee earlier this week. On Tuesday, that presentation was an hour and 45 minutes. I will send a link to the full board with the not only the budget book, which is updated in the packet, on the website, but also a link to the recording of that presentation. But just to highlight a couple of pieces, because as you continue to work through the budget process, the committees, particularly the standing committees, do have the ability to consider potential amendments. So I'll make a couple of comments about the committees and specifically this committee and the organizations that you have jurisdiction over. Just as to ground everyone again relative to the budget presentation and the delivery of the budget, as I said at the presentation to HR Finance, this really is, it was the administrator's budget when it was proposed, accepted by the HR Finance and Property Committee, but really throughout the entire budget development process, I would say this is the county board's budget. I really think we've made a lot of strides in our budget development process, and from the beginning of that process, department heads and the staff that worked to develop the budget really focused, we really zeroed in on what the board provided us, the standing committees provided us relative to direction. That starts with the budget priorities and budget assumptions that were adopted by the full board. It moves forward to the direction we've been given by the standing committees. And I'm very proud to say that the budget that we delivered not only reduces the tax rate substantially, but it delivers on all of those budget priorities. It likewise stays true to the budget assumptions that the board adopted that we build into the budget. So with that overview, I'll move forward and talk through kind of each of the departments that you have jurisdiction over. So the task that really was before department heads was a collective one, and that was the implementation of the board's number 1 priority, 3-year budget priority resolution, and that was implementation of the wage study. That implementation was no small feat, but I'm very proud to say, again, it was the board's number 1 priority. Department heads, the message to them was this is going to be shared sacrifice, and we all stepped up to the plate, and departments were able to do that and build it into the budget while still maintaining all the services that we deliver and incorporating the new priorities that the board developed and provided direction on, specifically the minimum revenue guarantee funding was provided for in the budget, as well as additional continued funding to address homelessness. So really shared sacrifice, the primary way that we were able to implement that was scrutinizing the budget. And as I referenced in previous meetings with the full board and standing committees, ultimately we defunded about approximately 15 positions across the county, or the equivalent of 15 positions, full-time equivalent positions across the county. And some of those were in large departments like the sheriff's office, but it was across the board. We defunded a position in the Register of Deeds office that's a staff of 4. We only funded 3 positions. So you can imagine that's a pretty substantial change when you're talking about 25% of your staffing. But every department really stepped up to the plate. So looking at the committees, this committee and the departments that report through it, I'll just highlight a couple of things, and I'll start with the Highway Department, because that's the most traditional, I'll say, department that you have. Across our 26 departments, 17 of those departments either came in with a budget that was flat compared to 25 or down in levy from 25. So really an exceptional job, shared sacrifice. The highway, when you look in the budget book near one of the appendices, we do have a year-over-year department comparison. You'll see that they are actually up about $750,000, but I want to provide you context there. You'll recall in our 2025 budget that the highway department actually had access to local road improvement fund money in excess of $1 million. So therefore, we decreased their budget in 25 based on that LRIP allocation. They are essentially flat or even down from last year because we had to make them whole from the levy we pulled out last year. So again, a very strong job in the highway department. Their culvert aid actually came in. Again, culvert aid is outside the operating levy, but that came in lower than 2025. That's not really a function of anything that the county has done. That's a statutory program that municipalities participate in, have the opportunity to participate in, but that did positively impact the budget. I will say with respect to the highway department, we continued to fund. One of the real challenges in the budget was on the capital side, and I referenced this at the full board meeting. Based on the strategic use of reserves that the board had implemented, most notably the loan to Bug Tussle in 2024, as well as the use of reserves as part of last year's budget deliberation. About $1.6 million in total of highway and general fund reserves were utilized to drive down that tax rate. Based on that and our capital funding strategy, we had $0 roll over into our capital improvement fund by fund transfer. In terms of critical projects that we move forward, and Chris did a great job working with department heads to build the capital budget, your initial projections, your initial capital requests on our 5-year capital plan for 2026 were in excess of $10 million, I believe about 10.6. Ultimately, you're funding just shy of $5 million in the budget that was accepted by the HR Finance and Property Committee, and that was driven by truly critical infrastructure needs. Those are infrastructure needs within CCIT, our IT infrastructure and IT security. And then the other piece that drove that reduced capital spending plan was really critical projects to maintain and protect future general transportation aids. We could easily have cut highway projects, but the problem with cutting highway projects is that it follows you it's a 6-year tail. General transportation aids are based on your average as compared to other counties in the state. That's the formula. So we structured that capital plan to seek to maintain our spending to protect those future general transportation aids. But make no mistake, all of the other capital projects that were in that $10.6 million list that aren't funded are essentially deferred maintenance. They're pushed further out in the capital forecasting. That doesn't mean, of course, you need to do all those projects. Additional scrutiny is always a good thing. But those things are on the 5-year capital plan for a reason. It's to keep them on the horizon, so at least we're thinking about things. So in terms of capital projects for the highway, they are specifically called out in the proposed budget. You can find specifically what projects we're doing. So I won't go through those in detail, but suffice to say, we do continue to do quite well with the federal and state funding splits that we have for projects. So we're continuing to not only do the actual capital work, but also provide for additional funding for design for future projects so that we have those shovel-ready projects ready to go in the event of funding availability to, again, make utilization of those federal and state programs should they continue or new ones be created. So the other departments that generally report to this committee are a bit more unique. I will say they're similar in that uniqueness. That is, they're multi-entity in nature. So Central Wisconsin Airport is comprised of an intergovernmental, created by an intergovernmental agreement between Portage and Marathon County. CCIT is Marathon County, the city of Wausau, and North Central Healthcare. So in looking at their budgets, I'll start with CCIT. Based on the intergovernmental agreement that the county has entered into, as have the other parties, that the CCIT Commission, City County Information Technology Commission, sets the budget. And there's they go through a very similar process, I should say we, because I'm on that commission and chair it. We go through a very similar process as we go through at the county. That is, we scrutinize the budget, identify capital needs, and develop the budget and present it to the members. Similar exercise this year, really looking at, where possible, budgeting for attrition like we did last year at the City County Information Technology Commission. Looking at contracts, it might not, this I'm sure doesn't surprise you. IT contracts across the board are going up in terms of the cost. And while in some instances we do have the ability to look for alternative contracts or alternative vendors and some ability to have cost control, in others we really don't. The example I'll use is Microsoft. Our Microsoft license costs continue to go up. Microsoft is not, we're not in a position to say, hey, we want to negotiate with you and drive down that cost. We pay the license cost. But where we do have those opportunities, we are looking to make changes, eliminate expense where we don't truly have that need and do things more efficiently. So City County Information Technology similarly took that approach. I will say with respect to their budget, it was an increase over last year for the county. That is not only a function of the things that I just referenced in terms of costs, whether that's personnel, service contract costs, but the other part that the reason that our budget, the request from CCIT to the county went up. It went up also for the city of Wausau. That's because the formula that we utilize to allocate costs through the City County Information Technology Commission, because again, they work with North Central Healthcare, is based on utilization. Well, and that utilization is calculated over a 3-year rolling average. Our utilization of IT services, as has the city of Wausau's, has increased over those last 3 years relative to North Central's. North Central has used less. Marathon County and the city of Wausau have used more. I can tell you on the county side, one of the drivers of that is our recent facility work that we're largely wrapped up now on the Lakeview campus, but North Central's utilization was higher early because their construction on that Lakeview campus happened earlier. That focus shifted to the county a couple of years ago to wrap up our projects because, again, that multi-phase project, the county side of that was later. You add on to that things like the Forensic Science Center. So our utilization, our share of the pie increased relative to the costs at the City County Information Technology Commission. And then lastly, I'll say with respect to Central Wisconsin Airport, they came in, they're one of the departments that came in flat. Again, no direct tax levy has been allocated to operations at the airport for a number of years. I will say on the indirect side, I think one thing I'm proud of in the budget, and we'll get better next year, is we are working for those multi-entity organizations, Central Wisconsin Airport, City County Information Technology, North Central Healthcare, the ADRC, Parks, Rec, and Forestry, where they serve multiple entities, and Marathon County provides the backbone support relative to internal services, things like human resources, legal, finance. We're doing a better job to make sure that we're allocating those costs appropriately to those multi-entity departments. So Central Wisconsin Airport, again, no direct tax levy support historically. This year in the budget, there is funding for the minimum revenue guarantee program that the board approved. It is essentially designated within the within the contingency allocation, because again, the utilization of those funds is contingent on two things. One, Portage County putting in its respective share. And the second is that the community, the broader community, put in the remaining half of the projected $500,000 allocation. So that is within the budget, and we did make some changes, as I alluded to, with respect to that indirect cost allocation for Central Wisconsin Airport to better mirror the indirect support, which would otherwise be an indirect levy support. So those are the three departments that really are under the purview of this committee. I would say, the discussion that was had at Human Resources, Finance, and Property earlier this week, and then yesterday at Health and Human Services, I reference again that this is the county board's budget. It was the county board's budget through the development based on the focus we had. You certainly have the ability to continue to make modifications to the budget. That work is not done. My only suggestion with respect to that work is that should modifications be made to the budget, either in terms of increasing revenue projections or bringing in making changes to reduce expenditures or costs in other areas of the budget, I would ask that you strongly consider taking those funds and putting them towards projects as opposed to simply mitigating the utilization of debt levy to drive the rate down. And the reason for that is, as I alluded to before, we deferred a lot of maintenance. If those costs are not going away, and then the other big part is the potential for the highway shop construction, the relocation and construction of a new shop. And I know that, I want to be very clear, I'm not saying that that project has been approved. It has not. It has not been approved by the board. The board has made a lot of decisions kind of laying the groundwork for that potential project, but there's still a lot of work to do, and the board can always make modifications to that plan. But I do think, and it's alluded to in the budget, and you can look at the section that references our outstanding bonds and notes. The county is in a situation where I still need to do work to refine this plan with Sam and our financial advisors, but we do have already, we have existing bonding that the county has done. Most notably, you bonded for projects at the Lakeview campus. North Central Healthcare is paying a substantial amount of that bonding. So you already went out and bonded and you were able to get rates. A substantial portion of those rates were between 1% and 2%. That's the interest rate you got on those bonds. Some of the other bonds were between 3 and 4, but still very, very good interest rates. North Central, again, is servicing some of that debt. You can see it in the debt schedule that's in the budget on the website. If we look at taking advantage of that already existing debt, particularly the debt that North Central Healthcare is paying in servicing with cash, they're paying $3 million this year towards that, I should say $3 million in '26 towards that debt obligation. And we've strategized about how to put that cash toward capital projects, most notably the highway department relocation, should the board approve moving in that direction. There is a potential for us to not have to bond for the highway shop. The board recently designated $30 million of highway reserves for that potential project. If we assume, and this is a giant assumption that I can guarantee you will be wrong, but if you assume that the project for the highway shop costs $50 million, that leaves $20 million that you would need to finance. If you were to borrow for $20 million and were to get a 3% interest rate, which is a really good rate right now, I wouldn't bank on getting 3%, that interest, not including the actual bonding cost, but the interest alone is about $6.89 million over that 20-year term. If your interest rate is 4%, it jumps to about $9.4 million. And if your interest rate is $5 million, if your interest rate is 5%, the total interest during that 20-year term is in excess of $12 million. So suffice to say, if we can find a way to avoid borrowing and take advantage of the already existing debt that's been issued at that very advantageous interest rates, those advantageous interest rates I talked about, it's highly advantageous to the taxpayer long-term. So again, my point being, rather than have that debt levy, the service of debt, be reduced, the strategy would be to utilize that already existing debt, move that to debt levy, and then take the cash from North Central Healthcare that they're using to service those general obligation bonds to finance the project and avoid all of the borrowing costs that would otherwise be attendant to the highway shop. So much more strategy to come, but that was my suggestion as further considerations are had by the committees and the board. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know Chair Robinson wants to talk a little bit about, again, the process that will be upcoming with further deliberations by the committees, the public hearing, and adoption.
HR Finance Chair Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you, and I want to thank the administrator and all of the department heads for their work on the budget. There is some pain that is associated with it and trying to live within our levy limits. But from the county board's perspective, we've been engaging the county board in the establishment of the budget priorities and going over the budget assumptions and working with the committees over the last few months relative to what are the levels of service and the fees for services that we'll be charging. All of that resulted or were incorporated into the administrator's budget that he presented on Tuesday, and we accepted it. It is now the county board's budget, and it will remain the county board's budget until we take final action on it on November 11th. But some important timelines is we've accepted the budget at finance. We will be reviewing amendments, and we encourage all county board members and committees that have interest in having amendments to submit them throughout the process. But we've got a deadline of October 9th for considering amendments prior to publication. On the 13th of October, the committee will authorize publication of the budget. That will freeze the budget at that point until after the public hearing. That public hearing will be held on November 3rd. And then again, committees and individual members can submit amendments all the way through the process. The Finance Committee will be reviewing all amendments that we have on the 10th of November and presenting the budget to the board on the 11th. And again, it is the county board's budget now, and we welcome input. And if you have questions or suggestions, please let the administrator or members of the HR Finance Committee know.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the committee? If we don't have any, I would echo Chair Robinson's comments. I know this was a big ask for staff, so Administrator Leonard, Sam, Chris, all the other department heads, I know how difficult this was, and every year it's a challenge, so your work is very much appreciated.
Chair Pfeiffer, this is Vice Chair Dickinson, if I could.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So looking at the proposed budget, looking at the dollar amount increases based upon the value of a home of $253,000 and the increase. My question is, for municipalities that were reassessed this year and had significant increases, will they see more than that average percent increase for Marathon County? Is that baked into that number? There will be winners and losers, so to speak? Or is it just based upon, the net new construction and doesn't affect an individual municipality differently? Thank you.
Well, Sam and I will take that together. I think to your underlying point, there's a section above that says, it's unlikely that anyone is going to be either the average homeowner with their value going to be treated exactly the same as, and this converse is true, that your home valuation doesn't go up is likewise highly unlikely. The valuation within your municipality, if your municipality did a revaluation, shouldn't impact it would impact your municipal rate, but it shouldn't impact how it was apportioned. If I'm correct on that, Sam, we apportion, the overall levy is going to be apportioned to municipalities based on equalized valuation. And equalized valuation by the Department of Revenue is done across all municipalities within a county every year. Your valuation within your municipality dictates how the municipalities then further collect their taxes. It might be an oversimplification, but Sam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so we do by equalized valuation for the county to the municipalities. They do it by assessed valuation. The reason for that is because there's so much complexity to municipalities when you have things like MFL or agricultural land, that they then are able to deviate that or divide that out in that assessed valuation appropriately.
And the other thing I would add is that, again, the charts only include the county's share of the respective tax bill. So if you think about, I know everyone would love if their total property tax bill was $886. The county is, generally speaking, between 18 and 20% of a total tax bill. The remaining portions are the other taxing jurisdictions. So you have school district, municipality, technical college. And those specific taxing jurisdictions, if you're in a jurisdiction where the school district went out for referendum, that is going to drive much more of that tax bill than the county's increase in total levy, because again, the rate for the county dropped down significantly, particularly if you look at it over the last 2 years, which I kind of alluded to in the budget, with the use of strategic use of reserves last year by the board. The actual levy, the dollar amount of the levy was held flat. So you essentially bought down, even below the net new construction of 1.78 was last year, 1.61 was this year. So more than half in terms of percentage, more than half of the percentage growth in the levy is made up by simply net new construction. But to your point, Supervisor Dickinson, I don't know that I've given you a great answer, but it depends. It's going to be the simple fact that a municipality went through a revaluation does not necessarily, it doesn't mean that their tax bill is going to go up. I mean, if all other things are equal and you simply do a revaluation, your rate is just going to be different within that municipality, particularly based on the assessed value Sam referenced.
Any further questions, Vice Chair Dickinson?
Not on that. I guess I would just make the statement that, it is difficult to look at the chart and see 12 out of the past 13 years increases in taxes. Administrator Leonard, we had this discussion down in the Dells at the conference that I don't particularly have any interest in discussing the rate, because the rate is just a multiplier. So to me is how are people having, what's coming out of their pocket? So it's just a statement. It doesn't require any conversation back, but that is my concern when we look at the budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. And as those who have been through this process, we'll have many opportunities to discuss this budget again before November. Move on to item 5B1, discussion and possible action by infrastructure to forward to County Board for consideration. One, resolution to amend the 2025 highway budget. I believe we have Kevin joining us virtually.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know Sam's in the room. She's been involved with this quite a bit too, so she might be able to help with any of the financial questions, but I'll run through the logistics part of it. We have Administrator Leonard had mentioned our capital purchases. For most of my career at the Highway Department, our equipment budget was set just below $1 million, and that stayed flat for over a decade. So it kind of has resulted in quite a bit of our fleet becoming aged. We have trucks that were some over 20 years old, and many of them between that age of 14 and 20 that we're trying to replace right now. And to compound that issue with these older trucks, which require a lot of high-end maintenance on them and have a lot of breakdowns, we have 4 trucks this year that were due to be in service for this coming winter season, and those trucks are going to be late on delivery from the vendor, who is, they call it a truck build. They take a chassis and they actually add the box, add the plows, add the hydraulics, harnesses. So the truck builder is behind. We're not alone with this. They have several other counties kind of in the same boat, where they're behind on their delivery dates, and the result of that is we're not going to have these 4 trucks in service for this upcoming plow season. Those 4 trucks that they're looking to replace are in that age of 14 to 20 years old. We've been putting a lot of maintenance money into these, and right now we have one out with it's over $10,000 in repairs. We have one truck this year that I think we've put over $60,000 in repairs to. And one of those trucks is due to be replaced, has essentially been parked for most of this year because our mechanics have concerns about some engine issues that are going on with it. And we're trying to figure out if it's worth fixing or if it's not worth fixing. An engine in a truck can range from the $40,000 to $60,000 range if something critical would happen with that. So we spent quite a bit of time trying to track down other options. We looked at other vendors to see if they could squeeze us into their schedule to get those trucks built up and ready for this winter season. We searched around, and we've been watching on auction sites and talking with places like Minnesota DOT about any trucks that they might be selling that would be in far better shape than what we have. They have a fleet of over 600 trucks. Just they operate differently than us. The state has their own plow trucks, so they have a big bigger fleet and thought we might have some possibilities there. It kind of struck out basically everything that we found that was up for sale or available was the same vintage of what we have concerns about going into the plow season operating. So we came across a vendor who most of these trucks are built per order. So nobody typically builds a plow truck and then puts it up for sale. And back in a couple of years ago when parts were having big delays and it was taking 2 to 3 years to get these trucks built. There was a vendor in Minnesota that does a lot of DOT truck builds, and they went out on a limb and ordered up 100 trucks and had them equipped and built up to Minnesota DOT standards. They had 100 of them, and for whatever reason, I don't know the logistics, and they didn't end up selling them to Minnesota DOT, so they put them out for sale this year. And they went through 98 of them, and when we tracked this down, they were on their last 2 trucks there. Our guys went over, took a look at them. The trucks they have a little bit more horsepower than what we have. They have a higher end greasing system, which got a single point of contact to grease the entire truck. They have a little bit more hydraulic control on the wings. They have a slurry system set up for putting salt down. And they have a little bit larger wing and a few other, I guess what we would consider bells and whistles, but some of them can also be very highly function. And also like things like that slurry system is something that we've never used before. So it might be something that we could discover would be a benefit to having out in our winter system. So these trucks I'll get to the dollar part here. The trucks were priced at about $380,000. Our last few trucks, our accountant kind of went through, the couple that we have coming in that are tandems for this year were around $350,000, and that was before a little bit of our setup. The last tandems that we had, she said they were valued out at about $380,000, so they're right in the ballpark with what these trucks were. And coming up for future stuff, we've been talking with chassis increases and with truck build increases that our budget numbers in talking with our local vendors is right around $400,000 for the new trucks that we'll be bidding coming up next year. So we worked with Sam, put together some numbers and looking to bring these 2 trucks in. And Sam has the resolution put together for that full dollar amount. Our request is to take funds from our reserve account and use that to cover these 2 trucks. On the dollar side, that information is all in there. On the logistics side, we know with the trucks that we were trying to get rid of and get out of service for this season, they are maintenance issues. Maintenance issues results in a few things. One, it's loss of funds. Our trucks operate off of a system where when you run them, we show revenue. So our winter plowing money from there goes into revenue for it, and that's to cover our truck expenses. We've actually lost money on some of these if you look at the dollars and cents of it. So that's definitely a negative thing when you're running pieces of equipment, and basically the work you get out of it, you're spending more than what you're getting back for a return on it. We also have safety things. When our trucks are down, that means our roads aren't plowed. Winter maintenance is our number one function for the highway department. So our service running these older pieces that we know will have more frequent breakdowns is going to be declined from that. And that doesn't just result in people being upset or disappointed the road's not plowed timely, but it's a safety thing if we can't get out there and do the work that we're supposed to do. Lastly is our crew morale running with some of these older pieces that our mechanics see it. They see the work that they're putting into it and just see repeat after repeat on some of these with they're the frequent flyers coming through our shop for maintenance. So with that, I think that gives kind of a good background of why we're looking to have these extra funds covered and the benefits that we'll see with our highway department with having those trucks is going to be that I think we'll lose less money on those trucks with maintenance, better service to the public, and a better work environment for our employees out there, either working on trucks or operating them.
Thank you, Commissioners. Sam, do you have anything to add?
I can just add on the financial aspect of it. So what the resolution will do is it'll amend the current budget to increase transfers from fund balance. So that's the funding source for the purchase of these 2 trucks, and then increase capital purchase, which is the expenditure. It does require a 2/3 vote because we are amending the budget, and it is a significant amount.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the committee? Supervisor Hardinger.
Hi, just so I understand this right, you've got 3 trucks that are on back order, and you've got 2 that are basically deadline. So we need to replace those 2, and we're probably short 3 this year?
We have 4 that are on back order.
4.
So they were supposed to be due November, the first week of November is what their due date was. And we've tried to negotiate and talk with the vendors, see if they can move anything around. And they're March, April, and May they'll be staged or staggered deliveries. But basically, by the time we get them in, winter will essentially be done.
That makes sense. And then the other ones that you have deadlines, so these are the 2 that you guys were able to find. Good job on that, by the way. So it sounds like these 2, and I'm sorry, you had 2 that's deadline now that you can't really find parts for either. So are we essentially down 6?
Well, we're not down any. The issue is that what we do is we run with about 39 plow trucks, and then we have 4 spares. As you can imagine, the 4 spares are the trucks that they usually get traded out. They're older. I know one of them is a manual transmission yet, which when you're operating wings and plows, Sanders, Salters, and Bryan systems, manual transmission
It's difficult.
isn't something you also want to throw in there.
Right.
So the issue, we're not down any other than that one with our guys having that concern about runnability with the engine.
Okay.
I would say that one is down. Normally we run about $60,000 a year worth of revenue on it, and that one was at I think it was 18,000. It was really low, and they said the reason is they basically parked it when they started seeing issues coming up with it.
Okay.
So I guess we would be down 1, and the others are very aged and frequent breakdowns.
I understand. Okay, so essentially this is because the 4 that we have on order aren't going to make it before winter gets here, and we need additional equipment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions, comments? If not, I'd look for a motion. Is that Hardinger? Motion from Hardinger, second by Griner. Any further questions, comments on the resolution to amend the 2025 highway budget? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, we have unanimous approval for the resolution to amend the 2025 highway budget. Will go on to full county board. On to item 6, educational presentations and committee discussion. Highway operation monthly update. Take it away, Kevin.
Okay, I guess I included that memo, kind of had all of our highlights in there.
Does anybody have any questions on anything in the memo? And thank you for that. I appreciate the nice summary because it's tough reading really long reports like that.
I think most of it is just our typical operational things that are going on. And then bid list, we have LRIP meetings coming up. So that is the local road improvement program. Every 2 years, we have a kickoff a new cycle. So next week, Tuesday night and Wednesday during the day, we're meeting with all the towns on Tuesday night and cities and villages on Wednesday.
Wonderful. Any questions, comments from the committee? Hearing none, thank you for your report. We will move on to item 6B, CCIT project update. Take it away, Jerry.
There's a project update in your packet. I'll just give you a couple of quick highlights. The main thing that we've been working on is last week, Workday went to their fall upgrade, and that was the point at which they changed the security login, and that affected a number of areas that were logging in with a different mechanism. So that's the people that were that the county has as employees and does payroll for them, but for which have slightly different environments. So that's the ADRC, the airport, and the clerk of court's office. So that actually took quite a bit of time. We had to change over their whole process for them to log in. Cece on our team has been doing a great job working with that. There's just, I think, less than 15 left to do. So she's been working on getting those logged in. Nate and I and some others have been trying to do cleanup out at the Regional Forensic Science Center. There's a punch list of stuff that still has to work differently or better. There's 2 pieces of software. One that is a new piece of software that they added at the last minute that we are just going to kick off on right now. The other piece of software that they're using, they're having some problems with. And then the camera locations that got put in by Camera Corner in the decomposition areas are not exactly where they need to be. So we're going to be working on moving the cameras with either ourselves or with the vendor's help. There's lots of other smaller projects going on. I'll note we had, it's construction season still for another few weeks. And so we had 2 more fiber projects that we spent time on this last month. One was some fiber that was installed 2 years ago that turned out it was drilled through a storm sewer that caused some problems for the city. That's been repaired. And then we had a piece of fiber on Randolph that had to get moved for a very complex set of reasons. And that got moved last Friday night. It took, they started at about 11:30 and finished about 6 in the morning. So pretty busy, lots of stuff going on. The .gov's address changes that we did for the city and the county are done. We still have to do North Central Healthcare and ourselves. So we'll be kind of kicking that off next month.
Wonderful.
Any questions on our IT project?
Any questions from the committee?
Obviously, budget is probably the most time-consuming thing that's been on my plate for the last couple of weeks,
Yeah, absolutely.
other than a vacation, which I just got back from.
Any questions?
I will note, and Chris talked about this at the budget meeting, there's a really complex jail technology project that we are just starting, that we've been working on for a while, that we'll be working on for probably a good year and a half, right, Chris? It's a $1.2 or $1.3 million project estimate. We're going to break it up into 2 phases. We're going to go and look at some of the software that's going to be implemented the week after next down on Ripon. But it's going to be a fairly complicated project. It's going to require the jail, the facilities people, and the IT people to work really closely together.
Question, comments from the committee? Hearing none, thank you for the report. Move on to item number 7, next meeting date and time, announcements and future agenda items. A, committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. B, next meeting date is Thursday, November 6, 2025, 9 a.m. Also want to announce the broadband fiber lighting today, 1 p.m., Corona Winter Municipal Center, if you can be there. I have some lineup of some really great guest speakers I've seen. With that, up for adjournment, who'd like to make that motion? Hardinger with the motion, second by Griner. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time, everyone.